Let's take just a minute, just a beat, just a moment. Take a nice deep breath. Let it out slow. Feel some rest. Feel some grace. It's been a lot lately. I'm looking around the congregation today and I'm seeing people for whom it has been a lot lately. It's been a hard week, hard month, hard year. Some of us are dealing with a big thing that is too much. Some of us are dealing with a bunch of little things that if it were just one at a time, we could handle. But they all showed up at the same time, and now they're a big ball of little things that are too much. Some of us have medium things. Some of us have combinations of all of these. All of this stuff that just feels impossible. Earlier this week, on Thursday, I think, a guy came to our door at home to sell us a roof. You know how they do, what with all the hail damage we've had lately. And Mariah answered the door and said, we're not interested right now. That's just not our thing right now. That's just not where we are at the moment. But the guy had a quota to fill, I'm sure. Probably gets a commission on every roof. I can appreciate that. And he asked, why aren't you interested? What's holding you back? And I don't remember exactly how Mariah said this, but this is how I imagine she said it. We just can't handle one more thing right now. And the guy stepped back. Okay? Can I leave this piece of paper with you? So if you ever want to get rid of one of the roof-selling people, that's a good way to do it. And Mariah was right. In that moment, we couldn't handle one more thing right now, but then, of course, we had one more thing. And one more thing, and one more thing. They just keep showing up. And it is important in these moments when it is too much to remember that a breath is a prayer. A sigh is a prayer. A yell, a scream, a shout, an ugly cry is a prayer. A scream of God, what do you think you're doing, is a prayer. And God hears those prayers. Those prayers are well attested. If you don't believe me, read the Psalms. Some of them don't have happy endings. If you don't believe me, read Lamentations, read Ecclesiastes, read Job. Read that moment in John, that shortest verse in all the Bible, where Jesus, the God who is love, who came into the world as one of us, who was living a life we could not lead, who was loving a love we could not love, that moment when Jesus wept. Or go further and read about the moment where God on the cross shouted out, "Why have you abandoned me?" There are times when it is too much. And it is okay to admit that, to say that, to shout that, to yell that, to tell it to whoever you want to tell it to God. And I know that it is in those moments when it is too much that we offer platitudes that do not so much help. Those are not the moments when we need to hear God has a plan, because those are the moments where it feels like the plan is a terrible plan. When it feels like the plan might be to think of a plan in the car. I saw this morning, in a little moment of God saying, here you go, I saw this morning a comic that showed someone on a roller coaster. The spirit next to them in the car, arms up, ready to go. The person next to them cowering in fear of what was to come. In these moments, it feels like that. God has a plan. God works things for the good. In moments like this, it feels like that. So I'm glad that we have this reading from Paul today. Paul, you might remember, is writing to the church in Rome. And as I talked about last week, the church in Rome has been having problems. Some of them were exiled and have returned. There are fights going on. There's all the garbage of life. These are folks who are oppressed, who are marginalized, who are in the middle of it all. And who are probably feeling like we're trying to do this thing and it's not working and I don't know what to do, and if God has a plan, it doesn't seem like a very good plan. And Paul writes, Paul, who knows suffering, who knows the suffering of his audience, who knows his own suffering, who has been persecuted and beaten and arrested and imprisoned, Paul writes, I consider the present sufferings to be nothing in comparison to the glory that will come. You're going to tell me it's hard? I will tell you I am harder. Paul writes that all of creation is groaning, and his audience has to be saying, no kidding, so are we. And then Paul reframes the groaning. This is a groaning of pain, for sure, for certain, absolutely, without a doubt, but it is creation groaning in the pains of childbirth, creating something new, creating something wonderful, creating something loved and worthy of love, creating something for us. And we, who are the church, we are groaning with it. Midwives, in the work of creating something new. A new heaven and a new earth. And I know we can't always do that. Sometimes we can't even get out the groan, and then the Spirit itself intercedes for us with sighs too deep for words. Everyone is in pain. I don't know the pains of childbirth. The thing that I remember is in a biology class in high school, we had to watch a video of one. And that caused one of the girls in the class, and I'm not going to name names, but I remember exactly who it was, to shout out, "Oh, hell no." It is the pains of giving birth. And that pain can be overwhelming. But there is something beautiful that comes from it. And that can be hard to remember, that can be hard to envision, that can be hard to imagine when we don't know that we are in the pains of birthing a new heaven and a new earth, a new world that will be reigned by love, where the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less will be no more at all, not even a little voice in the back of our heads. But we hope. Paul is asking us to look at this suffering with hope. And hope is a thing with feathers. I mean, some of the feathers are falling out. There are big bald patches on hope. Hope's beak is cracked, chipped. But hope has big talons. Hope has a giant wingspan. Hope has steely eyes looking towards the future. Hope might be a little beat up, but hope is ready to go. Paul is asking us to have hope, not some naive, childish hope, not some little platitude of hope. Paul is asking us to have big, strong hope, because hope is what helps us create change. To get involved in that thing that is new, that thing that is coming, that new heaven and new earth where the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less are no more. Hope is our drive. And even when we are hopeless, again, that Spirit comes. It says, here, have some of mine. Maybe it comes in a moment of prayer. Maybe it comes in a friendly face. Maybe it comes in a hug or a hand on the shoulder. But it comes. Here. Have some of my hope. That might be the essence of faith, that essence of trust. That idea that I can hope in what I cannot see. That idea that I can be loaned hope so that I can go forward. And in that hope, through all of us in the church, all of us midwives helping creation to give life to something new. All of us who rely on a Spirit who will groan for us when we can't. Who rely on each other when we are overwhelmed. Through that hope, we participate in the new creation. There is beauty in that. Through that hope, we together work for the good of each other, for the good of God, for the good of God's reign of love, for the good of all creation. And so through us, God works all things for good. And so we can hope. We can hope. We can hope. We can hope that tomorrow will be better. And next week will be better still. And we will keep stepping forward into a future of a new creation. Where love reigns. Where we are at peace. Where the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less are no more. And that doesn't take the pain of what is away. That doesn't erase the hard times. But it gives us that little bit we need. That little bit we need to move forward together into abundant life. Thanks be to God for hope.